Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, but as I really like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today I am so excited because this guy that I met at Wooten Woods at Music and Nature Camp is a really cool guy, and he plays a cool instrument, and finally was able to he tracked me down in a sense, but I was tracking him down. Mr. Vance Umphrey. How you doing, Vance? Thank you.
Hey, Jeff. I'm doing really well. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a super pleasure to get the chance to talk with you today, and we've been talking about this since I met you last year at Wooten Woods, so yeah, I'm super happy that we're here.
Oh yeah, me
sitting
too.
Down.
Because that was so much fun. I mean, we spent a week there at Wooten Woods for Music and Nature Camp, and Victor pulls out all these cool things to do, and you make great connections and all. But haven't really had a chance to kind of sit down quite like this, and I'm excited. So I know you're on the East Coast for some cool steel pan type of stuff, and we'll get into that. Want to hear about what you're doing. But first, I always am interested in, where did music really, when did it come into your life? I mean, some people play, when they were 2, they started playing the piano or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But did your parents play? Were you grabbed by it? You took lessons? I think you took music in school. What was your musical trajectory, sort of?
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say music was there before I can start remembering anything. My mom was a beautiful singer, and my grandfather, her father, was a choir director. And so from a young age, I remember being exposed to music, and I think just kind of through my family. And I remember by the age of 5 years old, my grandparents bought our family an electric piano. And so at that time we were actually living on an Indian reservation in South Dakota, the Cheyenne River Sioux. Yeah, the Cheyenne River Sioux Reservation.
Wow.
And my parents were teachers, there. And so,
you mean they taught school English or math or something?
Yeah. My dad was a math teacher, and my mom was an English teacher. And I don't have any indigenous heritage in my blood, but it's been kind of, I think my father's some of his parents and grandparents were also teachers on the reservation, so my family does kind of have a connection there. Anyways, so I'm a 5-year-old kid growing up on the reservation, and we didn't have cable TV, but we had an electric piano. And so I remember at a young age just going onto the piano and playing and just playing around, not even, I didn't really have any direction. I wasn't taking lessons at that time. So but it had a couple pre-recorded pieces of music, and I remember just trying to go by ear, trying to figure out what those melodies were on the piano. So I would try to replicate the sounds that I was hearing. And so then maybe about, I think, 10, 11 years old, I maybe had started taking my first piano lessons formally.
Still on the reservation?
No, actually, I did. I think this was pretty much the year that I moved off the reservation. I did kindergarten through 5th grade there, and then we moved to the Black Hills in South Dakota, where both my parents grew up, and then both of their parents lived. So,
wow.
So it was nice to have both sets of my grandparents right there, and so that was a blessing, and they were super supportive musically. My grandparents and my parents, So and at that time I also joined middle school band for the first time, where I joined percussion. So at the age of 11 or so, I started taking piano lessons. I later on that year got my first drum set, which was one of the most exciting days of my life. And then I was in percussion in school band. And so at that time it was something that I really, really enjoyed doing, but I was also playing a lot of sports, basketball, cross country, tennis, baseball, And so
A well-rounded childhood. You were doing a lot of things, but music was big.
And music was there, and it was big. It was something I really enjoyed. So now let's fast forward a little bit to like the time when I'm starting to go to university, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my future. A lot of people kind of tell you that music's like not the most secure career path to go into. So,
right.
So as an 18-year-old, it's like it's hard to really think about. So I kind of started school as undeclared, and knew I wanted to be involved with music, but wasn't sure.
Had you been in bands and things? Were you in high school? Did you play in groups?
I played a little drum set in some kind of rock, like just like friends. I was the drummer in some like little rock thing, and then we did gigs with like a blues cover band. And for a few summers, I played with a really, really good blues guitarist locally, and we played some bars and stuff, and did the blues, like a lot of the blues classic covers and stuff, Yeah. So that was a nice time, and I definitely really have a deep love for drum set. I was playing drum set at that time. So now once I kind of got into, I applied and got accepted at Humboldt State University in the beautiful Redwood Coast in Northern California. So what a great setting to go to study music. It was a really exciting time. And as I got there was two people that I met, the percussion teacher and the piano teacher, who I was so drawn to that I just knew these are the people I want to learn from. Mm-hmm. The percussion teacher was Dr. Eugene Novotny, and I'll talk a little bit more about him later. He was the guy who introduced the steel pan to me. And then the other was Dr. Daniela Maneva, who's a brilliant, fantastic classical pianist from Bulgaria, and so through their mentorship and tutelage throughout the course of my university, I just immersed myself completely, and then it was shortly after that I decided, okay, I'm gonna major in music. Like well, also at the time, a lot of people were saying, a lot of people who had graduated said, no matter what degree you get, no one's getting a job in the field that they graduated with, their degree. So I said, well, if it doesn't matter, then I'm going to just get a degree in something I love and then give it a shot.
You were one of the smart ones then, Vance.
I'm happy with the way it went. I'm very happy with the way it went. I don't regret anything about it. So then, so I got into Humboldt State, and then that's where I was introduced to the steel pan, and so which was great because it was a combination of both, super funky rhythms and beautiful melodies. So with a percussionist and a piano background, I was like, oh, I know how to, I can get down with all that. Like,
yeah. And so you majored in performance, I think you said, right?
Performance, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And so were you then performing steel pan kind of right out of college, and where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so towards the end of college, I was in a few different performance groups on steel pan. I was in the I think at that time our band was about 50 players.
50
the
players.
The orchestra at Humboldt State University. If you go back and see, you can see some concerts from Humboldt State Calypso Band on YouTube. And aside from that, I was in a 10 piece group, also a steel band. It was all steel pans, and we would play gigs just around the community. And then I was in a jazz combo where I was the only steel panist, and we had a flute, two saxophones, trumpet, guitar, bass, and then two percussion, a drummer, and then another percussionist. So it was a pretty big jazz complement, but that was a great experience for me because now I was the only steel pan voice, and we were playing jazz charts.
Wow.
So we would play gigs where we would read through like 30 of the standards out of the real book or something, and then like we had maybe 10 or 15 different original compositions that we would have in our book. And so, I had to start improvising like on every other tune or something. We would toss around solos, and so that group really gave me an opportunity to start exploring improvisation in with steel pan.
Man, well, the steel pan is so cool. I've always been, whenever I've seen it, I've been very attracted to it in the sense of, wow, this is a cool thing. So
Yes.
maybe talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about what is a steel pan? How did that thing come to be? And is it, it seems like people are just pounding on the bottom of this steel drum,
Right.
but there's a lot. I mean, they're tuned different ways or in different keys and things. I mean, what is the deal with the steel pan?
Yeah. So what's the deal? I mean, how did it become the instrument that it is? Well, it took for somebody to take a raw oil drum and then turn it into an instrument. It takes a long process, maybe over a week or two, and basically they have to take a hammer and then sink the face of the drum, and then they kind of etch in each individual note. But we gotta rewind a ways to really understand how this instrument came about, and I'm super happy to talk about this story because it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And so back in 1883, when the island of Trinidad and Tobago was under British colonial rule, they actually passed a law called the Peace Preservation Act. Which sounds like a
nice.
cool. It sounds like a nice thing. Guess what it did? It outlawed drumming. It outlawed drumming. Like for all the African residents, it was illegal for them to play, own, or build hand drums.
I don't think the enslaved people in the United States were allowed to have drums either.
Yeah. This is not the only case where that took place. And so kind of out of a necessity, they started trying to find other things that they could express themselves musically with.
Yeah.
And first they turned to bamboo, and they had different sizes of bamboo. And each guy these are pretty big bamboo rods that they would kind of hit into the ground. The size would make different tones.
Huh.
So they would have these, that's called tambu bamboo. If you ever wanted to go look up tambu bamboo, you could see some examples. But because bamboo is a little, it's kind of brittle, it would break pretty quickly. And so I think they started looking to other materials and going in the scrapyard and taking pieces of metal, like a brake drum off of a car, a biscuit tin, just little things hitting a brake drum with a nail became an instrument. And eventually they, I think kind of on accident, discovered that if they modified the shape of the metal, they could get two different sounds out of one thing. And so that idea started to roll, and they went from 2 to 4 to 8. And as soon as you have 8, you can make a scale. You can make like a melodic scale, right? And so at a time it was only like, I think it wasn't a fully chromatic instrument. And then eventually, they would hear a song they wanted to play, but they didn't have the F sharp. They didn't know what F sharp was, but like, I mean, some people might have had this kind of background, but many didn't have any sort of literary musical background. But so they would put more notes on, and then, I mean, this is now from the invention of like the kind of when they started going on the steel pan. I want to say it's like the 1920s, and then by like the mid 40s, they had already developed a full orchestra with top voice from like soprano down to bass.
Wow!
All chromatic, every section chromatic, and so this idea caught like wildfire, and every year between those couple decades, there was like massive innovation, and so
they were so creative to do that. I mean that, and just that having that desire to, man, we got to play some music. What are we going to do if we don't have music? I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody. It didn't necessarily occur to me growing up. I wasn't really a musician. I wasn't out banging on pots and pans to make particular sounds. But how creative! What a sort of a beautiful Yeah,
just
need or
just
way to
a
express
need.
yourself.
It was a
Yeah,
need, it was a need,
yeah.
definitely. And so when I hear the steel orchestra, I hear the element of kind of triumph and overcoming oppression. Like that, the sound of this instrument
cool.
has that in its history, So yeah, so it's cool. And at this time, these guys were thrown in jail for playing these instruments and stuff, like in the early days. Like it was not accepted still yet. It wasn't until the, I think, mid 60s that Trinidad gained independence from Britain. So what's crazy is you go back and talk to some of these old school guys that were there from the day one of this instrument, and they can tell you that I remember back when we were under British colonial rule and I had to go to British school. They were a British colony. Like, there's no one in America you can talk to that remembers when our country was a British colony.
Yeah.
But it was that recent where you can go talk to people who experienced that in Trinidad.
And you have been around. I mean, one of the things I know about you, having met you a year ago, is that you get around, man. You really get all over the place, and you're carrying those drums around with you, aren't you?
Yeah, a lot of the times I'm carrying my instruments around, which is a burden, but it's certainly worth it. If I have some spare time, I might set up in a bus station around the sidewalk, and anytime I get to share this instrument with somebody for the first time, it's always such a good feeling. Somebody walking by, or even like a little kid sometimes, they'll come by and want to, I can tell they want to play. So yeah. I'll say, hey, come on, like step up behind the instrument, and then I'll show them just a few notes and let them try it out. And then, I just feel fortunate to have the opportunity to kind of be an ambassador of this instrument and share its beauty with the rest of the world. Yeah.
So it's really cool, and I know you're going to. They're basically these big orchestras of a whole bunch of people playing the steel pan. And how does that kind of go? You've got the bass and the tenor and the what is the?
The whole layout, the instrumentation.
Yeah,
it's a full orchestra. It's a full orchestra. The way they have what they call the lead voice, which is the highest pitch. And then below that, you have what they call the double seconds. Below that, you have, and then you have a double tenor. Below those, you have what they call a guitar pan, which mostly plays kind of like the harmonic, rhythmic part of the leads are playing the melody, and then the guitar pans are kind of playing like a harmonic layer. And then you have what they call cello, and then you have some orchestras have what you call tenor bass, so you have bass and tenor bass, which is holding down the bass lines.
And everybody's playing in their pan 8 or 10 or 12 notes or something.
Well, right? Each pan is fully chromatic, and so my instrument has a 2.5 octave range.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's fully chromatic, yeah. And so I think maybe that's like 32 notes, I think, in my pan, and the bass might have, the bass now needs 6 complete oil drums. Because the lower the notes, the bigger the notes have to be, so you can fit less notes on each drum.
And all these players need to be good musicians. You can't just go in there and whack at it. I mean, you got to know which notes you're playing. And you have music for it, and people need to read music too, or is it more a little intuitive, or how does it go?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Everybody that's playing needs to be completely precise. This isn't a free improv situation at all. So when I go down to Trinidad, I join an orchestra of about 120 players that rehearses for over a month leading up. They start even earlier than that, but when I reach, it'll be about a month before the competition. And this competition in this island is almost the equivalent to something like the Super Bowl is in America. Yeah. It's like, everybody, because there's maybe like 17 large bands. So they have large bands, medium bands, small band categories. Large bands is 120 maximum, because if they didn't put a cap, the bands would try to bring more than 120 players. And which it's just, they love it down there, man. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. And so when you're walking down the streets, you'll see people with T-shirts representing their favorite band, just like you see someone with a San
Bruce
Francisco
Springsteen or something, yeah.
49ers or like a Michael Jordan jersey, and it's like they fall, and so we have a preliminary round, a semifinals, and people get eliminated after each round, and then you get to the finals, and that's the top 10 bands in the country, and yeah, it's something like a World Cup or some sort of Super Bowl of steel orchestras, and
yeah.
So now to kind of get to your question about the way the music comes together, every night in the yard, it's not written down whatsoever, and most people don't read music. It's taught by rote, which is the term when you describe teaching music just by sharing. So one person demonstrates, and then the next person just kind of follows what they see, and you go back and forth, one note at a time, basically, until you learn a full 8-minute composition completely memorized. And
just playing by ear, really.
Yeah,
and feel maybe too, but
yeah, ear and feel. But one thing that's nice about the pan is, as you're seeing it, there's all these patterns, because it has all these little bumps inside, so you kind of can see the physical pattern, and your ear's learning the pattern too.
Well, so it is almost like a visual and an oral pattern that you're playing.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And yeah, exactly.
It's so cool. What about the sort of the racial makeup of the players? I mean, Trinidad is primarily, I mean, I don't even know if you say African American, but
right. Yeah, you would say African, maybe African descendants of African heritage.
Caribbean.
What? Yeah, Afro-Caribbean. But actually, Trinidad's a pretty unique Caribbean island because of its history. It had a lot of slaves brought from Africa, and then after slavery was abolished, they started bringing indentured servants from India.
Wow.
And the indentured servant, and the indentured servants had to work for 7 years, and then there was maybe some opportunity to earn a piece of land after your 7-year time, which the Africans actually that wasn't on the table for them before. But and then also they brought Chinese came over a while ago, and I don't exactly remember like why, if they were workers or laborers or how they came. But so in Trinidad you have European, Chinese, Indian, and African people for at least a few generations. And so although the bands are, I would say, primarily African players, you do see a lot of Indians and
multicultural.
Maybe, and at this point, like, some people are a mix of all three or four.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is, man. It sure is. I mean, these people are just are beautiful people, man. Everything about it, everything about them, just the way they look, the way they talk, the way they play music, fills your heart with joy, man.
You're filling my heart with joy right here, right now. What is that going on? I mean, we were at the Music and Nature camp with Victor, and he is just such an amazing guy, and what he puts out there. But you're talking about sort of a real elemental instrument that would, and your whole life you've been doing music, and
in different capacities at different times. But it's been a super meaningful thing, and in a directing. I mean, I wouldn't even go to these places if it wasn't for music directing me to do these things. I don't know
music is directing you think?
Music. I'm following music is the way. Most of my trips are because of a music project that I have my eye on, or some sort of someone asked me to, like, be a part of this project or something. Most of my decisions are actually, I think, guided by music, and that's why I came to Victor Wooten's camp last year. And man, we had such a good time at that camp, and so much of that resonated with me. I had actually forgotten until right before I signed up for the camp that Well, I guess it was during the camp that was really reminding me. I read the music lesson in maybe 2010 or
Victor's
2011,
book, right?
Victor's book, and a lot of the stuff in that book I hadn't really, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind throughout university. But then when I went to his camp and was remembering all these things, I realized how much of an impression his philosophies and lessons in that book had on me. They had a deep impression on me before I entered college, and I think some of that really like opened my eyes to the enchantment of and the magic of the world of music. You know, once you're open and you can see it, it's like it's just totally there. You know, it's amazing.
Great way to describe it. So, I mean, what else would you say about, you know, that power of music and how it moves people, and maybe how it can move people more and in better ways so that we have better harmony around the planet, kind of thing. I mean, it's just so powerful to me, and it's such a gift what musicians bring to everybody. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I mean, some of the most beautiful things that I see and experience about music is the coming together of people from all different backgrounds. There's a lot of similarities with the situation on the islands, former British colonies, and the situations on the Indian reservation. They're struggling with some of the same like poverty and struggles, and so I think so I kind of, you know, it's like I can kind of empathize, I guess, with some of those struggles, but then to see this story of how in Trinidad they used the steel pan to overcome their oppressor and bring people together to, because before this the guys that were there, they had kind of gangs and stuff. There was like gangs and violence, and then as they developed the steel orchestra, it kind of turned into that. Now they had a different activity to occupy their time, and they were making music together instead of fighting. And over time, I think there's definitely still some problem. There's a lot of problems everywhere, but definitely still some problems in Trinidad. But like internationally, Pan has been a huge gift of bringing people together. When I go to play in Trinidad, I'm standing next to people from Japan, Europe, Canada, all over the United States, South Africa. Sometimes people, I mean, it's an international appreciation for something that when you have that in common with, all of a sudden it's like you have a friend. And not only that, but the locals in the band, I might be learning music. I might be learning the new music from like a 12-year-old boy or girl. Like they're the ones teaching me the new music. Or and then I have to go teach the like 75-year-old guy after that. And so like you're standing next to like a doctor and the garbage man. It's like it breaks down every barrier of age, race, nationality,
and nobody worries about that stuff because you're just there
in that moment. No,
you're there to just bring out this sound together
and have a collective identity. You have a collective identity with that sound. Everyone's trying to make one. Everyone is trying to become one when we're in that band.
Everyone is trying to become one. My God, that's for sure. That's really what we're. I think that's kind of what humans want to strive for anyway. You know, man.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, that's that. Yeah, I think that's what music can really help us with, and especially in this time, we're becoming more globalized, and so music is one of the first things that can give people just an appreciation for a different culture. Once you hear, somebody playing guitar or percussion or singing, even if you can't understand the language, you're like, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I connect with that, and and then the conversation just continues after that, But it's bringing everybody together, and the more people get to hear the instrument and maybe participate. Steel orchestras are growing all over the United States each year. I just hope that it's going to bridge make cultural bridges. And so people can have an appreciation for each other. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. Well, we certainly know that it can. Maybe we just have to make it happen so that it does. So, man, it kind of sounds like, peace through steel pans. That would be cool.
Yeah, man, it's crazy that you just said that because you're reminding me of an awesome project that I know about in Israel. It's called the Peace Drums Project in Israel.
Wow.
And in this project, what they're doing is they're going to Christian and Muslim communities and Jewish communities and teaching these different children all the same music on steel pan. These are steel orchestras. Pan. Yeah, on steel orchestras. And then they bring all the kids together to make a combined band of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish children that are in the same band playing music together. And so then I think the families are able to get to know each other and develop relationships. And so if you look up the Peace Drums Project, this is an incredible project that's like right in line with everything that we're talking about here.
Oh my God. There is something about the steel drum and the sound. It's like, Tibetan singing bowls, but multiplied, Yeah,
it kind of has that resonance to it. Something about that sound vibration resonance or something.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it has it's proven that sound vibrations have a profound effect on our physical bodies and our psyche and all of that. And so I've often thought, man, it almost feels like the singing bowls or the gongs, you know what I'm saying? Like the gamelan or something.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. So the steel pan, those drums really are like, that vibrational sound. And I was telling you before, I ran into this guy, Mr. Bo, in Copenhagen, and he was playing the handpan.
Right.
And that's a very cool instrument. And, he is working on, with his partner, working on sound baths. So, man, they ought to, steel pans could be part of the sound bath band.
I think so. I think they absolutely could.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah. There was a really cool record that I'm forgetting the name of that had a compilation of all these different groups using that incorporated the steel pan, and a few of the tracks actually had the hand pan and the steel pan used together very tastefully. And I haven't really heard too much of that, but it worked very well. So, that's something I'd be very open to doing if I ever got an opportunity like that, for sure.
It'd
be cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as myself, I'd like to do a combination of, continuing to perform for the rest of my life and sharing, maybe more in the educational side of it.
Well, that's awesome, man. Your ideas for the sort of community centers, brilliant. I mean, they should be all over the planet,
Yeah, they should be. And it's not a new idea.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen places. Actually, it's funny because Victor's camp, like that idea, what he's doing is like a dream that I've had for a couple of years. Then when I saw it, I was like, it's real. Like it exists. It's possible. It's real. It's totally possible. Like, because some people tell you like, oh, like you got to be a little more down to earth and realistic or whatever. But shoot for the stars, man.
Shoot for the stars. Okay, well that's what we're gonna do. And Vance, I tell you, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you some more and learning more and checking out the steel pan orchestras. And just want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for taking the time to talk. And man, more to come, right?
Absolutely, man. Sure thing. I look forward to hanging out with you too, and I'll be sure to have my instrument. I'll bring it over, and we can make some music together.
That'd be awesome. All right, everybody. Vance Umphrey, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.